Mr. Andrews, do you have a moment? There's something I've been struggling with, and I was hoping you could help me out.
Of course, Alex. I'm always here to help. What's on your mind?
Well, it's about my English. I mean, I can communicate okay in English, but I really want to speak it at an advanced level, like you do. But whenever I try, I just can't seem to get the words out right. I don't know the right phrases, and I feel like I'm stuck using simple language all the time. It's really frustrating.
I understand how that can be frustrating, Alex. You're not alone. Many students feel the same way when they're trying to move from an intermediate to an advanced level. It's a big step, but it's definitely achievable. First, let's talk about what you feel is holding you back. When you say you struggle with advanced English, what specifically do you mean? Is it vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, or something else?
I think it's a bit of everything. Vocabulary, for sure, I know a lot of words, but when it comes to speaking, I can't seem to remember the more advanced ones. And grammar. I know the rules, but sometimes I get confused about when to use them in conversation. Pronunciation too, but I think that's more because I don't practice speaking enough. I guess it's just that when I try to put it all together, it doesn't come out the way I want it to.
That's actually a very insightful assessment of where you are, Alex. The fact that you're aware of these specific areas means you're already on the right track. Learning to speak advanced English fluently is like building a house. You need a strong foundation, which you've already got with your basic skills, and then you add layers on top of that. Let's break this down and tackle each part, starting with vocabulary.
Okay, I've been trying to learn more advanced words, but when I'm talking to someone, I always end up using the simpler words because they're easier to remember.
That's a common issue, and it's actually not a bad talking start with simpler words. Communication is about being understood after all, but to push yourself to that next level, you need to consciously practice using more advanced vocabulary. One method I recommend is what's called contextual learning. Instead of just memorizing words, try to learn them in context. For example, when you learn a new word, don't just look up its definition. Find sentences or articles where the word is used. This helps you understand how the word fits into a sentence, what connotations it carries, and how it's typically used in conversation.
That makes sense. So, instead of just making a list of words to memorize, I should find examples of how those words are used?
Exactly. You can also create your own sentences using those words. This does two things. It reinforces the word in your memory, and it helps you practice using it in different contexts. Another helpful strategy is to read widely. Books, articles, essays, anything that challenges your vocabulary. When you encounter a word you don't know, look it up, but also pay attention to how it's used. Then, try to use it in your own speech or writing as soon as possible. The more you use a new word, the more naturally it will come to you when you're speaking.
I've been reading a bit, but maybe not enough. And I don't always look up the words I don't know. I guess I should start doing that more.
That would be a great habit to build. And don't feel like you have to read only difficult or academic material. Read things that interest you, whether it's novels, news articles, or even blogs. As long as it's challenging you a bit and exposing you to new language, it's helping. The key is consistency. Make it a part of your daily routine to learn and practice new vocabulary.
I can do that. What about grammar, though? Sometimes I know the rules in theory, but when I'm speaking, I get mixed up. Like when to use the past perfect or how to structure more complex sentences.
Grammar can be tricky, especially when you're trying to use it instinctively in conversation. The key here is practice, but also understanding the function of different grammatical structures rather than just the rules. For example, the past perfect isn't just about what happened before something else. It's about showing relationships between events in time. So, when you think about using it, try to focus on the meaning you're trying to convey rather than the rule itself.
So I should focus more on the meaning behind the grammar, not just the rules?
Yes, exactly. Let's take an example. Instead of memorizing that I had eaten before he arrived, uses the past perfect because the eating happened before the arriving. Think about what you're actually trying to communicate. You're showing that one event was completed before another started. When you understand the why behind the grammar, it becomes easier to use it correctly in conversation. Also, try to immerse yourself in the language. Listening to podcasts, watching movies, or even following along with transcripts can help you internalize these structures.
That makes sense. I think I've been too focused on getting the rules right and not enough on the meaning. I'll start paying more attention to that.
That's a great approach, Alex. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. The best way to learn is by doing, and that includes making mistakes and learning from them. Speaking of which, let's talk about pronunciation. You mentioned that you feel like you don't practice speaking enough. What do you think is holding you back?
I guess I'm afraid of sounding silly or making mistakes. Sometimes I hear myself and think, that doesn't sound right at all. So, I end up avoiding speaking unless I have to.
I understand that fear, Alex. But remember, everyone makes mistakes when they're learning something new, and that's especially true with language. The more you practice speaking, the more confident you'll become. One technique you can use is shadowing, where you listen to a native speaker and try to mimic their speech as closely as possible. Intonation, rhythm, pronunciation, everything. This can help you get used to the natural flow of English.
Shadowing? I've never heard of that before. How does it work?
It's a very effective technique. Here's how it works. You find an audio or video clip of someone speaking English, preferably a native speaker. It could be from a movie, a podcast, or even a speech. You listen to a short segment, then you try to repeat it exactly as you hear it, matching the speaker's pace, intonation, and pronunciation. At first, it might be challenging, but over time, it will help you get a feel for how English sounds naturally. It's like learning to play a piece of music by ear. You start by imitating, and eventually, it becomes second nature.
That actually sounds like fun. I think I'll try that. But what about when I'm talking to people in real life? How can I practice without feeling self-conscious?
It's natural to feel self-conscious, but the more you practice, the more your confidence will grow. One strategy is to start by speaking in low-pressure situations, like talking to yourself in English, practicing with a language partner, or even recording yourself speaking and then listening back to identify areas for improvement.
I guess I've been too hard on myself. I'll try to relax more and just focus on communicating instead of getting everything perfect.
That's the right attitude, Alex. Fluency comes with time and practice, not from striving for perfection in every sentence.
That's really helpful, Mr. Andrews. But I also worry about how I sound. I feel like I have an accent, and it makes me self-conscious. Should I try to get rid of my accent to speak more advanced English?
Alex, having an accent is completely normal, and it's a part of your identity. Everyone has an accent, even native speakers. There are so many different English accents around the world. What's important is clarity, not eliminating your accent. Your goal should be to make sure you're understood, and that can be achieved through clear pronunciation, not by trying to sound like someone else.
I guess that makes sense. I've heard people from different countries speaking English with their own accents, and it doesn't bother me. But I still worry that people might judge me because of mine.
I understand that concern, but I want you to think about this. When you hear someone speak with a different accent, do you judge them? Or do you appreciate the fact that they're communicating in another language?
I appreciate it. I think it's impressive, actually.
Exactly. Most people will feel the same way about you. Your accent is a testament to your bilingual abilities, and it's something to be proud of, not ashamed. Instead of trying to lose your accent, focus on enunciating clearly and improving your pronunciation of certain sounds that might be challenging. This will help ensure that you're understood, which is the most important thing.
That makes me feel a lot better. Thanks, Mr. Andrews. I'm starting to feel a lot more confident in my English.
I'm glad to hear that, Alex. Remember, I'm always here to help if you need it. See you tomorrow, Alex. Have a great day. And remember, you've got this.
Thanks, Mr. Andrews. I'll make sure to start practicing right away.